Hey, I'm Skeptical Spectrum. I have another name called Jim Porter, but this is a place where I can be a little bit different. I can be honest. So, this is the first of an attempt to do 30 videos, one every day. I don't think I'm going to make it, but I thought I'd start now. The actual length of each video is undetermined, probably short to make it so I can not be exhausted and collapse. Tonight's topic is racism. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is a really horrible thing to say. I'd love to give some disclaimers so that I can be allowed to talk about this. I am white and I have blue eyes. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm actually just saying this stuff to try to get credibility to talk about race. I got beat up when I was a kid because I couldn't speak English when I came back from Puerto Rico, even though I wasn't born there. So I am right now just trying to say that racism is a real thing. I know that's obvious to people. There's a lot of definitions of racism, and one of them is this systemic thing. That means it's in our laws, it's in our culture, it's just something that is like, oh, the water we swim in, which is an old cliche. But I think it's important to think about it that way. What most importantly, though, I think it's important for people to start to talk about racism. I really don't know what I'm talking about. I got a lot of training. I consider myself multicultural when I go to Puerto Rico and when I was a kid. We have I mean, it's so crappy. The whole construct is so crappy because I'm over here personally struggling with the idea that I had an uncle Jujo who in the United States would have been called black. When I was a kid in Puerto Rico, it was a compliment to call people negro or negra, meaning you have nice dark skin, you know. When I was there, I didn't really understand anything. I just knew that I had my family there and my family in Indiana. I didn't even know Indiana was a really big KKK state. I thought we were in the north and we were better. Um, but for some reason, some of us care about improving the country and the world so that people aren't as tribal as they are, and they can hang out together without feeling like weird anymore. And that some people, you know what's funny? I think everybody has that urge, except for the fact that some people would rather feel weird by not stepping out and meeting people that are not like them. And I feel very funny about that. I feel like I it would almost be racist for me to in it it's and here's what's going on. In my head are all the stereotypes and assumptions and whatever else is in the aura and laws and like um, crap in our particular culture that constitutes racism. So some people say, well, there aren't racists, there's just racism. They're talking about systemic racism. That's true, but still, I think that it's like I'm a little bit racist. Like I, for example, I'm gonna feel different when I'm talking to a black person. I hate to say that, and I hope that doesn't mess with anybody. I've been um, very comfortable doing it, though, because when they're friends or when they're clients, it's like I get to know a person and people become people. I do give a shit about the concept of oppression. And what that means to me is that there are people that are more powerful and people that are less powerful, people that are given a chance, people that aren't given a chance, and also people who are given a chance and may not need it as much, and people who are not given extra chances who need it more because of the place that our culture put them in and enforced it with like law enforcement and stuff. Like we made laws that made people not human, and now we expect that they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps and things like that. So I get pissed off. And I think I have a right to get pissed off. I have to admit something terrible. A long time ago, I was drinking with my buddies when I was in high school, and we weren't supposed to be drinking. We were in my friend's RV in the backyard, and we were playing drinking games. And there was one guy there that asked, we were talking about stuff, and somehow I said something like, "Well, I'm Puerto Rican." And he said, "Well, that's just the same as being black, isn't it?" And I didn't like it. And now I realize that though I don't really know how he meant it. The way I remember him, he probably meant it in the way a lot of people mean it. And that is that, you're not quite white, right? And white being a good thing, right? And so I sort of felt offended. I sort of felt he said something mean to me. Now that I think about it, maybe I should have said, yeah. I wouldn't have known though. I did not understand that there was an African heritage. I did not understand that I have, 23 and Me says I have like some bit that's sub-Saharan African and all that stuff. Um, so I'm kind of doing this because I need all the public praise and shame I can get from me voicing my honest experiences with race. The thing is that if someone can't stand to see a little kid that looks like them and sounds like them and lives in the area they live, if they can't stand to see a little kid hurting, then they shouldn't be able to stand seeing another type of kid hurting, another kid that looks different, whose skin tone is different, whose culture and language is different. This the whole thing about like trying to determine if an immigrant has the right to come in our country, that's bullshit. You just should be able to walk across the border, come here, make a living, and improve our freaking country the way that people that come in here typically do. That's really what happens. I would say the only people that really made it worse were the original colonists and revolutionaries that made this country. They fucked it up for the people who it originally was. Like they could have said, "Can we come in? And what's okay to do here? And what do you want us to do? And what do you want us not to do?" And we'll write back to our kings and queens and all these people and tell them that, there's some rules that come with being here and that you only want so many, whatever, What I'm saying is we, we aggressively and rudely came into the home of a multiple groups of people who had been finding ways to live in this territory and were doing a pretty good job of it, but they were doing it in a different way than we would do it. We didn't really care about their ways, I don't think, whether they were good or bad. What we cared about is that somehow we thought, I'm talking about the European parts, because I'm Latino too, and also I'm white too. They came in and said, "Look, here's this land that nobody's living on." That's what they said. And let's just live here. Oh my gosh, these people that live here are so aggressive. They keep trying to come in and get us, kill us or push us off this land or whatever. So that's horrible. Now I think I'm starting to lose my flow of thought. Even my flow of thought, even though my flow of thought is naturally bouncy, I'm losing it. Um, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that it is so obvious to me that this country has a system of racism that even affects the way people who are the people we shit on as a society that that makes it harder for them to do everything, including going anywhere, driving anywhere. I mean, it goes all the way from, somebody might beat the shit out of you, arrest you, harass you, cheat you out of your money, shoot you, and everybody, and getting away with it. It goes all the way from that to, um, I know what it's like to be socially anxious. So I hear that people who are from a culture that's not the dominant culture, and I want to say that word again, dominant, which this is like, we're talking about bullying, we're talking about aggression, we're talking about the same thing that happens in a house where one member of the household is a tyrant over the rest and they're scared. I don't know what level people are scared at in the country in terms of being around other cultures, but I imagine it's a lot to process to walk into an office in most places and, interview for a job. The stats show that, if you take a resume with a white sounding name on it and mail it to a place, and you take the same resume with a non-white sounding, actually black sounding name, um, the white sounding names are going to get more likely selected for an interview. So I can only imagine, and I've been told this, so, by people who really, you kind of know what it's like, you know, because when you go to college, you do get fucking diversity, and you do get critical thinking strategies to learn, right? So, so the point is, when people, okay, so what I'm saying is that to walk into like a job interview is intimidating, and you're not being overly suspicious when you think that wonderful, nice leftist guy like me, who's even got some Puerto Rican in him, and we know what it's like to be put upon. That doesn't mean that I'm not unconsciously like taking 2 or 3 points off that person if I'm an interviewer, which I was briefly an interviewer at a mental health place I worked at. That didn't mean I didn't wind up lobbying to hire people of color, but that's not actually very impressive. What's what's very impressive are the people in front of me, whatever, race, gender, whatever. And so, okay, so gender brings up the thing. One of the places we're deconstructing, I think, the most, and so much rebellion about it, is gender right now. Okay. So I don't care if you believe it or not that gender is an actual spectrum. It is. Okay. But why am I saying all that? I'm saying all that. Now I got to think quickly. Why am I saying all that? Because I guess I'm just trying to talk about the fact that race is a construct. Race is fake. But the ancients, the so-called wisdom of the ancients doesn't exist. The ancients, our ancestors, were stupid. They were morons. They more accurately were ignorant. They don't know what we know now. They don't know that inside of us are these tribal drives that want us to make other people seem like they're bad compared to us, so that we can justify, winning tribal battles and getting the right grazing land and all that stuff. So this construct is, now that we know it exists, all the people who don't want to believe it exists, or who don't have any experience to believe it exists, need to get on the bandwagon of studying it. So what's going on is that we have this idea of race, which doesn't exist, but racism does exist. And it's happening in everybody walking around everywhere around the globe. And it's happening in the laws, and it's happening in the positions, and it's happening in the positions people get, and it's happening in the economy. And it's hurting some people more than others. And so, therefore, things like reparation are not a very big request. But our racism makes it things like seem like a big request because those of us who haven't really been bothered that much economically by the way people treat them because of their race, people like me, I haven't really been messed with like in some way that I think I can measure economically. Maybe I have. Maybe I'm blind to the way I've been treated. But no, I look like a tanned white guy, right now. And I am, I guess, because that's the life I've lived. I lived a life where my dad could get a very good job with just like a bachelor's degree in engineering or something until they until they mated him to become a master's and all that stuff. And so, so it's happening mechanically that we're all treating certain people differently. And it's those groups that get treated differently, meaning that just about anybody will treat someone who's considered to be in a race that's this low. Everybody, maybe even people in their race, but I'm not sure. Um, and that what's required is a conscious effort to basically equalize everything. I don't just mean equality of opportunity. I think what people are calling it nowadays is equity. You give people what they don't have, and there's plenty of tax base to do that with the freaking 1% and the 5% and the top freaking people with the top earnings and the big old inherited net worth. And they worked very hard, but they started at 100 and everybody else is somewhere way down from that. There is no economic or real world barrier to even out the resources if you use money to do it, because money is just so liquid. So there's no barrier to evening out, not the playing field necessarily, but the score. Because as I forget her name, Kimberly Jones, maybe. She talks about a monopoly game where it wouldn't be given somebody that they actually hadn't earned, right? She says for 200 years we've been playing Monopoly and going around, but we don't get to collect anything when we pass go. And now you're asking us to make up and achieve what we have and have the earnings and net worth that we have starting now. And you got to have that hunger and you got to have that drive. No, the biggest correlate of what we might call success and even financial success is that you were born wealthy, right? So you spread the wealth, okay? Even if there wasn't racism, we would have been needing to spread the wealth, because shit happens to people and there's no reason they should suffer it. And I'll tell you this, there's another thing, there's no such thing as lazy, okay? What's going on in people all the time, people that are doing very well, even happy people, all kinds of mental health shit's going on, all kinds of psychological shit's going on. We have drives that make us do things. We have concepts in our heads that make us think of things to do that we wouldn't have thought to do, or make us have difficulty thinking of things to do that, or to stop ourselves from doing certain things, right? And so the point is, there's no one who deserves what they get if it's something bad. Everyone needs to have a pretty good life, and there is a mechanism to do that. That's giving people who don't have enough more, and it'll make our whole world a better place because it's a lot better to hang around happy people than it is about to be happy around people who are destitute and feeling like crap all the time and just trying to make ends meet, right? So how do you do that? You give them enough to make ends meet, right? You create economies that do that, right? And by the way, all the sort of free market stuff, there's no such thing as a free market. The market's being manipulated all the time. And in fact, I won't even get to free will. I'm just going to say that the free market is not like free. Okay, I'll say this. If the market is free, that means the people are not free. The people should be in charge of the market through the elected government. That's how we speak and overpower the market so it doesn't control us and decide what we get. That's where we should be putting our effort. All right. I think I'm done. I think I talked about racism, and I hope I make another video every day for the next 30 days. Can't promise. Thank you. Am I still recording? I am still recording.